Is there any room left to innovate on these pre-filled all-in-one liquid coolers that have taken the market by storm since the release of the Asetek LCLC almost 7 years ago? NZXT hopes so, and here are their latest entrants into this crowded category, the Kraken's X41 and X61. With its factory tuning and data center DNA, an Intel 730 series SSD is an amazing choice for gamers and performance enthusiasts. So let's start with a quick overview of the similarities between these two. They both feature copper blocks with high-quality thermal compound pre-applied, sleeved power in and PWM compatible power pass-throughs for enough fans to handle push-pull configurations on either of the units. They also both feature an integrated variable speed pump, a key improvement in build quality that will help reduce the noise of the unit compared to other solutions, and they both feature 1/4-inch flexible non-porous tubing to keep them running smoothly throughout their 6-year warranty period. I guess finally, they both come with NCIX's tragically not fully square, but otherwise pretty darn good FX Series 140mm cooling fans. On to the part where they differ, the radiator. The X61 doesn't change much compared to the X60 and still has a slim style dual 140mm rad, but the X41 got a very significant upgrade to its thickness that should make it perform pretty similarly to a dual 120mm slim rad, but with great compatibility since it'll fit in pretty much any case that has a rear 140mm cooling fan spot. Really interested to see how that one turns out. Other than that, in the box, we've got the usual Asetek mounting hardware, the Intel flavor of which is pre-applied with AMD stuff included in the box, but that's about it for the physicality of these coolers. So, let's move on to software. NZXT's CAM software was a bit of a mixed bag for me when I first installed the beta, and it remains a bit of a mixed bag for me now that I'm using a non-beta. It's alright, I guess, if you're looking for rudimentary system information, but it doesn't really do anything that something else doesn't already do better. There are two main tabs right now, Basic and Manage, with NZXT intending to add more functionality in the future. Basic is available on any system and gives you some rudimentary information about your system. Some of it is useful, like RAM usage or temperature tracking over various periods of time, and notifications if any of those monitored parameters exceed a predefined limit, but it just still feels like it needs some work. The feature that should show me the biggest RAM hogs on my system, for example, didn't really align with Task Manager. CPU frequency detection seems to be a little bit off compared to CPU-Z. The advanced views charts don't work that well on my hardware, and the way it expands and contracts just feels a little bit clunky. But the Manage view, only available with supported hardware like the new Krakens and Grid Plus, is where things start to get interesting. I will leave that to Luke, though.
Once you actually hook up your Kraken, you'll be able to enable it under the Manage button in the bottom right-hand corner, and that's when I actually get into things in the software that I do really like. You can monitor your pump speed, you can monitor the temperatures of both your CPU and your GPU, and you can monitor the fan speeds of your entire computer, which is pretty fantastic, although in our kind of setup, not everything works 100%. The main thing is that the LED control doesn't really work very well at all, although that's probably to do with the fact that these are pre-production units, and I have talked to NZXT and they've told me that these should work by the time you guys get them, and if they don't, their support will be there ready to help you right away. You can also do stuff like set different fan profiles, which is pretty bog standard, and you can see the liquid temperature of your unit, which is pretty cool, and this is actually what pump speed is based on. This isn't a custom controlled pump speed. You can't set it, but it will change depending on how hot the liquid is. So if your computer is running very slowly, you're not doing a ton of different things, and the liquid temperature isn't very high, the pump speed will be low, and the second you start doing something very intensive, the pump speed will go up. Next up we have the graphs, which I actually found to have no problems with, even with our very pre-production setup, and the graphs are pretty cool, and it's nice to have all this information logged. Although having all the settings all the way up to a year is great, but I'm not a huge fan of the fact that they don't have anything under an hour. I like just seeing like a 5-minute graph and maybe a half-an-hour graph, because sometimes I'm just working on things for a very short period of time. So I hope they implement that in the future, but it's not a huge deal. On the notification side of things, which is kind of the last thing in this side of the software, It shows you a ton of details, a little bit too much for myself. I don't necessarily need a log of every single time I've plugged in and unplugged a USB device, but it's highly customizable and you can set it to exactly what you want. So if this was my unit, I would just turn those notifications off and keep other notifications on, like when it warned me that Prime 95 was running because it was using way too much of my CPU. That's kind of nice to know. If there's something in the background that's hogging a whole bunch of my system resources and it's going to tell me about that, that's kind of cool. The X61 did quite well, beating out the NH-D15 in our testing, and the X41 did well, beating out the H100i. This is not super surprising as these are both 140mm coolers, and the X41 particularly got a thickness boost in this iteration of its product. It's pretty impressive. In a lot of cases these days are coming with 140mm, so millimeter fan slots, so I'm not super surprised that this is starting to happen, but it is quite interesting to see. The software definitely still needs some work, but having RGB control on your cooler is pretty cool, and that's a major selling point for me. We see a lot of color-themed builds now. You want your build to look good, and this can potentially make it look good by having a color-themed block. Are you guys interested in this? Tell me in the comments below, comment on the forum as well, like, dislike the video, subscribe to this channel and every other channel we have like Tech Quickie and Channel Superfun. Comment on the forum if I already said that. Subscribe on the forum because you can get rid of all the advertisements and buy a shirt. I don't think this one's for sale yet, or will be, but yeah, buy a shirt. Thanks for watching, I'll see you guys next time.